It's time for the movie raid, movie review, and tonight I'm going to talk about Psycho Remake, starring Vince Vaughn. So, this is based off the original, and it is a remake, of course, and I will have to say, well, there's really nothing majorly different about this movie. Now, you expect a remake to be, what? Remade, right? Different perspective, different angle, or at least a little bit different flavor to it, right? Different vision, different spin off the director and or other writers' contribution to the story, right? Of course. Well, in this case, the story is exactly as you would have seen in the original Psycho. Now, if you've seen the original Psycho, then obviously you know what I'm talking about. If you haven't seen the original actual Psycho, Alfred Hitchcock's Psycho, I strongly recommend you should. If you watch this first, you're probably not going to exactly know what's what. But now, you might even like it, though. You might even like the remake. And everyone has their own opinion about between remake and the original. And there are good remakes out there. There really are. But as far as this being a good remake, well, let's break it down here. Story-wise, it has the exact story from the original. No problem there, per se. It does have the exact characters from the original. No problem there either. I just felt that this was way too copy and paste, in my opinion, about this film. Everything from scene to scene, even the director himself has admitted that he didn't really change too much of the script or anything else in general. Really, it's pretty nailed down as far as not really changing anything from the original. And he also mentioned about perspective view, like a little slightly different perspective view from the characters. Well, I didn't really see a whole lot of that. I mean, it does have a slight change on certain dialogues between characters. It does have a slight change on the scenes. Like, it's a little bit different of how they acted, or let's say different clothing, or a different way that what they did in this film in comparison to the original film. And of course, we got the classic death scene, which I will definitely compliment that at the beginning of this film. They definitely made that to the T, which is just as terrifying as the original was. And of course, I honestly like the dialogue with the mother, where she's being carried down the stairs. I think that was more strong tone in comparison to the original. Now, the original, where Norman, he's got to take his mom and hide her in the fruit cellar because he's being basically discovered by other people that what he did as far a heinous act. Now they're looking for that person and so forth. So he has to take his mom out of the bedroom and then take her to the cellar. The dialogue in the remake, I felt like the way she said it, it's like, oh, you're not going to put me in the fruit cellar. What, you think I'm fruity? I like how that was strong toned on the character in comparison to the original. The original was a little bit low key, but it made its point. I mean, Psycho, the original film, is a pure classic, and certain like dialogue as how it should be more forceful, like as impact, how they say it. In comparison, I will say it's a little bit better on the remake. Now, like, for example, Norman, who sees the girl, the shower scene, that's actually a little bit different in comparison to the original. I like this scene because this dives a little bit more deeper with Norman psychologically, meaning that he takes the painting off the wall and looks through the hole, and then he watches the girl undress and whatnot, but he does something a little bit more added to that, to be not to be too explicit on the type of scene as far as just explaining this. He gets a little bit aroused. I'll just say that, and he performs in a little bit differently. I'll just say that. And in the original, he doesn't do that. He just looks through the peephole and then he puts it away. Puts the painting away and so forth, and he walks away. I will say Vince Vaughn does very well playing as Norman Bates. Definitely has that awkward, there's something with this guy type of tone of his character, which I really enjoy that. Am I comparing between the two actors? No. I see it as, how is this character perceived as in its original form, but within this remake, environment, different way. I would say let's talk about the environment real quick. I like the fact that they have the motel, they have the house exactly as you would see, but the house itself doesn't look like really the same type of aesthetic creepiness. It doesn't give off that, oh shit, there's something up there, No, to me it looks like a rustic, like, farmhouse looking thing. It doesn't really bother me though. Like, I don't really get too picky with that per se. It doesn't really give off that tone. Like at night, here it is stormy and stuff, and I see this, this old house. But in the original, you see the house, stormy, and it's like, man, that house is creepy. That house is, you don't want to go up there. You just don't, you get that feeling. You just don't want to go up there. But in this case, in this remake, it's like, it's just another house. But I would say the interaction between these characters, between Vince Vaughn's character as how he perceived being this, kind of a lonesome type of character in a way that we see in the original. I like how Vince Vaughn perceived this. I like how he progressed a little bit differently. However, there's only little, here and there type of moments where, like, we see a little bit something different about Norman on this. But that's where, in my opinion, kind of falls flat, that we don't see a little bit more darker version of Norman. Now, I'm not saying that Norman should be like a sadistic, mutilating people or anything like that. I'm simply saying psychologically of how he behaves. We don't see a little more deeper window here. We just see a small moment here and there of his mannerism, his reactions and whatnot to the other characters. Now, let's as far as the cast goes, I really enjoy what the cast is, how they set that up, and great actors involved within this film. I will say, on the character-wise, the sister, playing the sister, I don't have a problem with the actress per se. I don't really care for the whole. She looks like she's like going through a midlife crisis, and so she's got to wear these headphones and play rock music. I thought it was awkward when I first saw that in this remake, because in the original Psycho, she like I said, she was buying real estate or buying other type of property or something over the weekend, and her look, as far as how she comes into the film, she's just her sister, nothing pertained. And in this remake, you got this what appears to be a carefree, kind of rebellious look of her sister, and I'm like, okay, well, there's that, but again, to me, there's just not enough of the inner spectrum of the characters that we have to see, because this is a remake. Character wise, I want to see something a little bit more different, but still stay true to the original work. And unfortunately, it's a copy and paste. It's exactly how you see it. Speaking of characters, as far as the cop from the original film, I was really impressed of how they got that to a T in the remake. The police officer that follows the main actress, the main character, at the beginning of the film. I was pretty blown away. Like the way he moves, the way he talks, the way he looks. Like it wasn't like a completely different person or anything like that. I was like, wow, But again, it's a copy and paste. Like basically everything you see in this remake is exactly as you would see in the original, except it's in color. That's really the only main difference about this. It is in color. I don't have a problem with the fact that this film is in color. I do have a problem that there's just not enough depth with these characters that we should explore if this is going to be a remake. Like, you can still stay true to the film, the original film, and still explore, like, mostly, like, Norman Bates. I mean, if anything, we should focus on how is Norman treating the situation and how should he treat it differently in the remake. And that's kind of like almost a double-edged sword. I mean, how can you treat a main character who is very disturbed? We already know that even in the original, we kind of see that. And to get a little more deeper, and I would like to have seen that maybe Norman still hears his mother saying certain things, like he kind of mumbles. Now I would like to see that kind of mumbling to himself, saying a word or two, and whispering one or two words or three words, on a certain segment or whatever. Just mannerisms, just the way that I'm not saying like he should be being crazy, but like that we kind of just see him, kind of just how do I say it? Just kind of go through the emotions of what he's going through. Like might be angry, but his mother's side prevents him from being sympathetic, And to me, that's kind of important because like Norman Bates, who perceives as an innocent or even the victim in a way, but we obviously see he's not. And I will say that it does stay true to even the soundtrack from the original Psycho, which is cool. Again, that's the biggest praise about this film. It does stay true to the environments, the characters, how they look, the music score. I mean, that's to a T. I was pretty impressed of how they did that. But my question is about this remake. Why? Why remake this film per se? Now, obviously, for this time era, for when it was coming out, obviously, people will say, well, it's for money. Obviously, studios want the money. I'm very well aware why they remake films, obviously. But to remake this, like, what was the real objective here? Was it to really give a different perspective? And if so, did he succeed in this? Let me know what you guys think. Did the director succeed as far as giving a different perspective view? Because I didn't see that very much in this film, despite what he clarified in his statement about this. I really didn't. I saw little bits and moments here and there throughout the film that was slightly different. It wasn't majorly different at all. And again, this is a remake, So when you see remake, you see something different, right? Well, I really didn't. I mean, I just thought that this was a copy and paste film. I wasn't really that majorly impressed as far as being a remake. Again, even the dialogue, everything is basically page by page, identical. Nothing majorly different. So if I were to rank this out of a 10, I'm going to rank it as a 6. It does have a good cast. I think Vince Vaughn did very well as Norman Bates because of the way he was moving, the way he was acting and reacting to certain situations, even when someone's talking to him. You kind of see him devoiding it away from the other character that's talking to him. And I would have liked to have seen more psychological mannerism and psychological movements and emotions from Norman, in certain situations, not just at the beginning, of course, of the film, but like just, I would have seen more depth with these other characters and the situation, like kind of elevate the situation rather than, just literally copy and paste, and that's it. But once again, what was the real reason to remake this? It's understandable. It's a fan base in a way. If you're a big fan of the film, you remake it, sure, cool. But there was nothing majorly different about this film. I really can't say, at least from what I've seen in this film. Now, as far as owning this movie in your collection, sure. I mean, if you're a Vince Vaughn lover, sure. Maybe, if you want something new to discover, sure. I wouldn't call it a bad remake. I will say it definitely needed more inner depth with the whole thing, rather than just literally copy and pasting the entire movie. And you're literally watching if you were literally to watch both films at the same time, like side by side, you pretty much can tell it's almost identical of how it was. But yeah, 6 out of 10. Let me know in the comments if you think that, if I'm wrong on this, and that's okay. If you think this is a good remake, you think this is better than what it was, leave a comment, man.